And I'm sure he's very excited, Ethan, just like we are, about the addition of Luke Kornet. Let's jump right into it, man. Obviously, yesterday, NBA free agency started at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Or excuse me, I don't know. It was 6 p.m. Central Time. That's what I was trying to go with there. I kind of butchered that. But the Spurs signed Luke Kornet. That is the big thing of note, Ethan. And as the people have heard me say 1,000 times this offseason, it feels like, my one request, my one prayer was just get us a backup center. And they did it. What are your thoughts on the addition of Luke Kornet and what he brings to the backup rotation, man?
Dude, I love it. I love it. I know it's not the sexiest name in the world. It's not the guy you immediately think of when you're like, okay, we need an elite backup center. But he is very good. And I would describe him as kind of a watered down. Actually, you know what? Let me rephrase. Impact wise for our team, I think it will be a lesser version of what Isaiah Hartenstein was for OKC last year. Not as good of a player, doesn't have as well rounded of a game as Isaiah Hartenstein does, but in terms of being a very good rim protector, I think statistically he's actually one of the best rim protectors in the league. A highly efficient scorer around the rim. I know he's only getting opportune baskets when they come to him, but that's all we're really going to need from him, Jude. A terrific screener, but he's also just a big physical body that can get you rebounds, hustle plays, hustle points, extra possessions. And that's really what we've been asking for, honestly, Jude. Like Wemby's been our only physical presence, our only 7-footer. And now we have another one that was playing meaningful minutes in meaningful games for the Boston Celtics. And I know he probably won't be as good on our team because the Boston Celtics are such a deep team. But I still think the impact that he'll have on the roster, in particular the bench rotation, will be very, very valuable. And honestly, I think a $40 million contract over 4 years, that's pretty darn good. I had a friend reach out to me and say, I think we overpaid. I don't consider this an overpay, Jude.
It's funny you mentioned that, Ethan. There's a couple things that you touched on there that I'm going to bring up some stats on. But the first thing I'll bring up, shout out to Paul Garcia, covers the Spurs, also does some NBA coverage for the Spot Up Shot. Always good stuff on his X account. So here is the deal for Luke Kornet: 9.5 mil in year one, 10 mil in year two, 10.5 mil in year three, and 11 mil in year four. San Antonio would also have 4.6 million of the NT mid-level exception. So I'm honestly not sure what the NT stands for there, but some sort of contract / cap little loophole that teams have with the cap situation there. Left over on top of this, and the full 5.1 BAE. Again, just to be real with y'all, I don't really know what those acronyms mean, but it's some sort of cap space that the Spurs still have left over with this deal, and 25.8 mil left under the first apron. So definitely some flexibility there for the Spurs. And the thing that stuck out to me, Ethan, I know you were calling it an overpay. Yesterday was the first, or one of your friends was calling it an overpay. Let me
Correct. Thank you. Thank you.
rephrase there. I know you were not. You disagreed. But the cap just raised 10%, I believe, yesterday or today at the start of free agency. I saw that alert. So once again, every year, it's just going to continue to increase with these contracts and NBA inflation, if you will. It's just inevitably going to keep going up and up as the years progress. So again, some of these deals, like in 2 years, we'll bring this up again. 10 mil, will be the new 15 mil, if that makes sense. So with inflation and stuff like that, I completely agree with your point, but not to harp on that for too long. I think it's a good deal. I think it gives the Spurs flexibility long term. I think it also leaves room for the extensions that are coming down the pipe.
100%. And something that we don't often consider, it also leaves room for us to draft a younger center and give him time to develop. Like Luke Kornet, this is probably as good as he will be for the next 3 years. Like he's not going to get any better necessarily, but I also think for the next 3 years at least, we can have a very, very formidable backup center. And if we decide to draft one that's more of a long-term solution, Jude, we don't necessarily feel attached to this contract. It's also a very tradable contract at the same
Yes.
time.
Yeah, and he is 29 years old. So to your point, if maybe we start to see a drop off in like year 3 or something when he's 33, 32, I mean, I still think it's going to be in his prime. Or I guess that would be the end. 32, 33 would be
Right.
when he's over. So really, we're getting him for the rest of his prime. But if for some reason, just with the Wemby, extension probably, or I guess inevitable supermax that it'll end up being, we think. As well as Jeremy Sohan extensions and other people on the roster as well. Keldon's only got a couple years left on his contract. Maybe some of these guys aren't in the long term future, but even in a couple years, we're going to have De'Aaron Fox coming up, Stephon Castle. By the time this contract is over, he'll probably be up in extension time. There's definitely some flexibility long term with it not being the craziest expensive contract.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
And then just wanted to bring this up. You mentioned, kind of his defense around the rim. And obviously, we talk about, advanced stats not being, the be all end all. They got to pass the eye test here. But this is pretty simple. It's opponent field goal percentage within 6 feet. So again, Victor and Luke in the top 8 when it comes to opponent field goal percentage within 6 feet of the rim. And I think this is a pretty, as much as I was just talking about advanced stats here, it's just literally, how many shots were shot and how many the opponents made. So Luke Kornet up there, man. And when you think about the weaknesses off the bench, dude, I know you kind of harped on it at the beginning, but he's just exactly what we need. 7'1", 250, went to high school in Texas, so has some Texas connections. Another thing I noticed when I was just kind of refreshing myself, watching some of his tape after we got the signing, he's got some nasty to him. In the words of Pop, it's kind of subtle. He's not like super over the top, but there's one kind of play that was floating around with the Celtics kind of in their goodbye video, where he dives out of bounds to try to save a ball and bounces it off of somebody. And then, he immediately goes, kind of like the first down thing in football. He points the possession the other way because it was going to be Celtics ball. I saw the Dikembe, finger wag, some other stuff. He was cooking people up. I saw that too. So anyways, I love a little bit of the moxie there from Luke Kornet. If you weren't locked into the Celtics or at least their, bench rotation, you may not really know that too much. Like myself, I was guilty of that, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, man, I don't want to harp on his game too much because it's pretty simple. But yeah, dude, he's just exactly what we need in a backup center. We need some size. We need some physicality in the paint. He's everything Zach Collins wasn't. God bless you, Zach.
That is very true. He is everything Zach Collins wasn't. Just to play, I guess, devil's advocate for some people that will be in the comments. Yes, he's not like an exceptional shooter. He can hit it if he's wide open, but that's not part of his game. Perimeter defense, not going to be something that he's all that great at either. But when you think about last year, Jude, and we've harped on this a billion times, one of the biggest glaring negatives on our team was just not having a center on the bench rotation. Now we do. And I do think he is definitely an improvement over Bismack. As much as I loved Bismack Biyombo, he is unequivocally better than Bismack Biyombo was last year. And even if you just want to compare it to a recent signing with the Rockets, we think of Steven Adams, who's 2 years
Yeah.
older than him. He had a 3-year, $39 million contract, which is technically more money. And honestly, they'll probably be playing very similar roles as the backup centers for both teams. So I think it's definitely fair value. And for what he provides the team, will have an impact next year, Jude. And it's something that we haven't talked about yet is his character. He
Yeah.
seems like a really cool guy. And I have a couple Boston fan friends is how I should say that. And I've been noticing on Twitter, they've all been very happy for him that he got his money, but they're also very sad to see him go. And I feel like we as Spurs fans fully understand that, where we had role players taken from us that were very meaningful to us who
Mm-hmm.
go on to have better opportunities elsewhere. So very excited to see him on the team and see how his personality meshes with the other guys.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say, if anything, Ethan, there were so many games where we were at a rebounding deficit, and he is going to help with that at the very least, man.
Absolutely. Actually, you know what? I'm looking up. He had one of his best career games against the San Antonio Spurs. So I'm gonna look it up real quick, Jude. I'm pretty sure he had like 20 and 15 against us. Um, let's see. Let
I
me
was
look that.
probably tuned out because I knew we were going to lose that one.
It's very possible that that's what happened.
Especially if it was later in the year.
San
For some
Antonio.
reason, I don't
Yep.
remember that.
Here it is. It was actually the last game in March, March 29th. We lost we lost 121 to 111. He played 31 minutes and he had 15 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists and a steal on 70% shooting.
We want to see that in SA, right?
That's exactly right. You know what? Let me sorry to go
No,
crazy on you real
keep
quick.
going because
I
I
want
got
to
another
see
thought too.
I want to see what he did as a starter. He had 28 minutes and 16 games played as a starter and averaged 10 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 blocks on 73% shooting.
That's so funny you brought that up, Ethan, because you know what I was going to say? I was going to say, man, we're going to inevitably rest Wemby a few games here and there. So he will be starting for us at times. And I don't want to get too ahead of us here, but that's why I'm hoping we still, add maybe one more center or another front court piece because there will be games like that, where Luke will be the starter most likely. And then we'll need somebody else to kind of fill that void off the bench. So we're not having Jeremy Sohan versus Zach Edey anymore.
Mm-hmm.
As much as Zach Edey might be starting for Memphis, but that's besides the point. The good stats to bring up because there will be some situations this season where he's in the starting lineup.